Today let's take a look at the Kali Audio MM-6, the multimedia speaker, also known as Project Mammoth. I'm usually hardest on brands that I like the most, and it's just because certain brands set the bar, and in this case, Kali Audio themselves has set the bar for high value speakers at a low cost. With the popularity of their Lp6 studio monitor, a lot of customers were asking them for speakers that they could use with their TV in a bedroom or maybe a living room situation. Having run several of my own businesses for the past 20 years, one thing I found out is the customer isn't always right. Sometimes they don't know what they want, or if they do, they have an idea, but they haven't worked out all the pros and cons and basically the overall logistics of the whole thing. From a sound quality perspective, these are some of the best speakers that I've heard in my living room, but I still wouldn't recommend them for just anyone. Let's take a look at the reasons why. It's Joe Untitled time. For full disclosure, Kali Audio did send these out free for me to review. They did not get to see this video prior, so they're seeing this for the first time with you guys. The question is not whether these are good as studio monitors, it's whether they're good in a living room or bedroom or other typical situation. All right, so here I am. I'm about to measure the Kali Audio MM-6, and I'm expecting it to measure pretty much the same as the Lp6 V2. I'm not sure exactly why it wouldn't. All right, so like I expected, pretty much perfection. What can I say? DSP, good engineering, can't beat it. I'm looking at the measurements of the MM-6 compared to my previous measurements here in this garage of the Lp6 V2, and as we can tell, well, I'll let you take a look. They pretty much align very well. So, yep, they measure about the same. All right, so I just finished up setting up the the MM-6. Easy to kind of get them mixed up just by looking at them. But I just set these up, and the experience was very similar to setting up the Lp6 V2. It didn't feel like a consumer setup where it was just really easy to do. Although for me, it was easy just because I've done it before. But just the fact that I had to use an XLR cable, which it didn't come with. It does come with it if you bought the pair. Mine did not, and so luckily I had an XLR cable, but I had to connect one from here to the other, and then I had to use the jumper switches on the back to let it know which side was left, which side was right. It's just something that you don't typically have to do with a consumer setup. I think that's what they were kind of targeting with these. And so the other thing is it doesn't have a grill. It still looks like studio monitors. The fact that I had to set up power to each one individually. A lot of these things hint at the fact that these started off as studio monitors. Even the remote here is very simplistic. It just has volume down, volume up, and mute. It doesn't have HDMI ARC or some of the other features that we're used to seeing on some of the more consumer devices. All of this is forgivable if they sound excellent, and the Lp6 V2 sounded excellent. I don't see why these would not. Let's see. Here I have some binaural mics from Sonic Presence. These are the SP15 Pros, and you should get an experience similar to what I'm hearing if you have some nice headphones, maybe with a Harman target curve. Okay, this is called Below Freezing by IO. The bass response on these, yeah, these are legit. They have nice bass. As far as the imaging and all that, it's just accurate. The tonality, everything just seems accurate. Nothing is standing out more than it should. And in some cases, that might mean it's not as exciting as maybe others with maybe boosted treble, boosted bass, things like that. The imaging, you know, good solid imaging. Let's do another test. This next track that I'm going to play is kind of better for that because it does have some vocal tracks that are supposed to be centered. So we'll see about that. first thing I noticed is that, yeah, I was kind of thrown off because on one of the other speakers that I tested, the imaging was right here for the vocals. And on this one, it sounded like it was almost like inside of my head, like as if I was wearing headphones. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe I have to toe these in or out. I don't know if that's how it was mixed. And that's the tricky thing about using tracks that I don't know. I don't know which one it's supposed to sound like. So I enjoyed it more when it sounded like it was over here, but maybe it's supposed to sound like it's inside of my head. So it's tough to tell unless I play tracks that I know. So let me go ahead and do that. Unfortunately, those are not copyright free. So okay, so I'm pretty familiar with that song, and it does still sound like it's in my head, like as if I'm too close to these. Let me try backing up. Okay, so that actually sounded better. Maybe I should have them towed out. So again, what I'm looking for in this track is, she says 24 little hours, and then there's a little crack in the wood, like as if she shifted her weight. And you should be able to hear it around this area here. And if your speakers are resolving enough, you'll be able to hear that. If they're not, you really won't hear very much. So let's hear. Okay, so I heard it. I think I had these towed out a little too much. Try this one just for bass. Alright, so they have bass. That makes me very happy. It's front ported, so I'm not hearing any bad sounds from it. They've designed that well. And overall, I mean, it does it all very well. So even if it's not the best at one particular thing, maybe it doesn't have the best, most outrageous imaging, and maybe that's just because they're accurate. They're there to just do exactly what the track was intended to do. And so it doesn't exaggerate in any way, and I like that. It just does everything well. Tonality is good. Everything just sounds pleasing, and a system that I would like to hear for a long period of time. I hear some people who say, that they don't like the sound of, studio monitors. Maybe they're too clinical and they're not enjoyable for home use. I don't understand that, because if they've mixed and mastered on studio monitors, maybe they're using some Kali Audio Lp6s. They wanted it to sound as good as possible. So if you play it back on those speakers, that should be the most pleasing sound. The remote control does not control volume on the analog RCA or XLR inputs, only if you are using the SPDIF inputs. So this is something they probably expected nobody to do. I don't know. I have an Kali Audio IN5 here, and that has an XLR input. So it seems like I could just use the XLR out from this one and route it into this. And that would also apply for the Lp6 V2. So I assume you could probably just get one of the MM-6s if you needed to have the optical input, and then just route the XLR into the other one, I assume. They sound surprisingly similar. Of course, you wouldn't match these two, but it makes me wonder, how does this compare to the IN5? So in order for this to work, since this doesn't have the same technology where I input the left and right into this one and it passes the opposite one to the other channel, I have to just kind of do one of those split RCA things. So let's do that. Alright, so yeah, concentric, these guys are kind of magic. They image in a very nice way. Doesn't seem like it has as much bass actually as the MM-6, but these are also smaller woofers. The cabinet is larger though. So they're not that different, but I just noticed a little tiny bit more bass on the other ones compared to these. So you notice on these, because they're concentric, they're more forgiving of the left and right and up and down movement. Now this is not a review of the IN5s. I just thought it was kind of interesting to compare the two because they're getting more similar in price to the MM-6 compared to the Lp6 V2. They were very different price points. So it was very easy to recommend one for a specific customer who was really trying to save money. And these, if you're really trying to get the best possible sound and you wanted a more forgiving kind of soundstage. So Let me just hear one more track. Let me hear the vocals on this and see if it sounds the same as it did on the MM-6. Okay, yeah, it sounds very similar to how the MM-6 sounded. So that's awesome. You're getting accurate studio monitor sound, but in your bedroom or living room space. It's pretty cool. Starting with the pros, there are some things that these have going for them. First of all, they have a very quiet amplifier, which is always one of the things that I look for. Another thing is that the sound quality. Again, just excellent sound quality, and it's due to their DSP. So if you're not planning on doing any DSP correction, these already have it built into the speaker, and it's a very neutral speaker. That's something that a lot of speakers that are much more expensive can't say. Another thing is that I think that the price is reasonable if you consider that these are speakers with included amplifiers and DSP. They still have a lot of bang for your buck. I should also mention that the diagram on the back is adjusted specifically for the MM-6. The dip switches on the Lp6 are different. They are made for a studio situation, and these are more tailored to a living room or bedroom. If you buy the pair, it does come with an XLR cable, so that's pretty cool. And they do go into a standby mode when they're not in use to save power. Now for some of the cons. First of all, I think the look is just not appropriate for many living room situations. It looks like a studio monitor because it is a studio monitor. It doesn't have a grill, which is bad if you have kids that are drawn to a tweeter. Yeah, I wish they would have included some kind of magnetic grill. This does not have HDMI ARC, and that is something that you really want if you have a newer TV and you just want to use your TV remote to control the volume on your entire system. The fact that it does have a remote is cool, but it only works on the optical. I wish they would have made it so that you could use it on all the different settings. Speaking of which, there is no visual when you're changing the volume. There's just no screen, nothing here to tell you where you're at volume-wise. No Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi. That also means that you can't stream directly to these speakers. They have to be connected to a source that feeds the speaker. One pro is that you actually have amplifiers for each speaker, one for the woofer, one for the tweeter, for each speaker. So that's actually 4 separate amplification channels. And so you need to find a power plug for the left and the right, and that's something that you don't typically have to worry about with other powered speakers. You just plug in one power side, and then the other speaker is a passive speaker. I also mentioned that I do like the dip switches, but I find that the dip switches are a little bit hard to use. For example, if you want it neutral, you would think that it would just be all the switches either up or down, but no, you'd have to switch one of them up and another one down. You have to mess with the switches to get it to an even neutral response. The other thing about these is that they are good horizontally off axis, so you can move left and right, move to a different seat on the couch, but the moment you stand up and sit down, it's a very different sound. So I would recommend having them ear level, because the moment you stand up, the sound changes, and that's kind of normal. If they would have used, let's say, their IN5, which is a concentric driver, that would give you better off-axis response in all directions. The other thing that they might want to look at is including a subwoofer output in the future, because that's on pretty much every single powered speaker out there now. Some alternatives that I could recommend are just even using some of their Lp6 V2s. If you already have them, you don't have to buy anything new. You can actually use those if you're not already loving them at a desk. Also, I might even recommend their IN5s, just because those are the concentric drivers, in which case you get better vertical and horizontal off-axis response if you can get a pair of those, and if you can just wire them to your existing system. So if you need HDMI, then they actually have adapters that are pretty inexpensive on Amazon. I'll link to them down below, which will convert HDMI ARC to RCA, meaning that even though these don't have it, you can use this adapter and change the volume on these speakers using your existing remote. No need to use their remote. So if you have a way to get analog out, meaning maybe a headphone RCA output, sometimes older TVs have that, and sometimes some of the streaming devices have a headphone output, in which case you can actually use that and use a 3.5mm adapter to just their IN5 or LP6 V2, and that would work just as well. Now, you may need to get an extension cable for one of the RCA cables, depending on how far the speakers are, but you can easily figure that out. So in summary, it's one of the best sounding speakers you can get, but it's just missing so many features, it's hard to recommend at this particular price point. So anyway, that's it. If you like the video, make sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell to be notified when I upload new videos, and stick around if you want to see where this places on the speaker leaderboard. All right, so here we are at speaker leaderboard. If you want to go to this yourself, just go to speakerleaderboard.com, and this fits into a few categories, powered speakers being one of them. So this is based on the looks, build, functionality, sound quality, and value. So overall, where do these place the Kali Audio MM-6? Build, functionality. So this is overall. And I would have to say it's probably just right around here. It does have a little bit more functionality, I guess, than the LP6 V2. Essentially, this is pretty much the LP6 V2 with some different inputs. So it also fits in the category of best powered desktop speakers. And so for a desktop, I would say it's about the same as these. So when I reviewed these LP6 V2s, they were less expensive, and I would have to say that for a desktop, these are maybe down here if the price is what they currently are. I might even have to put these below the IN5s just because I do like this concentric. So somewhere around here. It's still in the top 3. So Kali Audio, you guys are still doing a great job. Don't worry. So these are under $500. Right now the pair is $409, somewhere around there. So where would I place these? Under 500 bucks. Value wise. So I think these were on sale for approximately $150, I want to say. So the pair was 300 bucks. So the pair for these is $400. And so the $100 price difference is significant. So I'm going to have to even put these lower. Let me see where I place the IN5s, because I don't think they're the greatest value. You know, $300 is a lot different than $400. So I'm going to have to say maybe above this, right around there. And last, we have the best overall sound regardless of price. And sound-wise, they sound pretty much like the LP6 V2. I'm surprised that I put the LP6 V2 over the IN5, probably because it does have more bass, and I like that. Thinking about it, I might like the sound of this maybe a bit more. I don't know. But because this is here above the IN5, these are, they sound pretty much the same. But because this is the existing one and this one is not beating it, you have to beat the champion. So I'm going to put this right here. So there you go. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree.